Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another week of More Than a Statistic. My name's Justin Griffin. I'm a 11-year recovered addict, and we're blessed to be here and to do this still. As you notice, my normal half isn't here again. He's going through some health stuff, and he's got some things to take care of, but we're looking forward to him getting back as quick as possible. So I asked my brother to sit in with me again to kind of talk about a topic that I didn't necessarily pick it, but it's come up several times through the week, whether I just hear the word or one time I heard the song. But I was just thinking about, when some of my friends are in lower places than me, and I'm trying to help and I'm trying to pray for them and to do these things, that I see desperation in them. But I took a little time to slow down and look at what my desperation looks like, and I realized that there's a couple of different faces of what desperate looks like. Does that make sense?
Makes a total sense.
I'll let him say his name and stuff real quick before we go into it, but I just kind of wanted to give just a kind of a window into what we're doing this week and why it looks the way it looks.
And I'm Shane, a believer and a follower of Christ and a servant, most of all to my people. But I'm thankful to be here. We're praying for you, Michael, that things get better, your situation and your circumstances change.
Yep. Okay, so while I was thinking about this, I thought about the different kinds, and I classified this into 4 different kinds that I think that I myself have went through, like just in my journey of not knowing a lot, trying to do things my own way, versus when a little bit of accountability come into play, and then my mind started changing a little bit into that ways. And then my first one was probably the I named it the false desperation, and that was it's a spiritual desperation, but when you really think about it, it's the opposite. Like, it's God, fix this, but please don't touch that over there. It's I need you here now, fast breakthrough. If you get me out of this right now. And it's not really, you're not wanting to submit anything at that point, but you're seeking escape instead of surrender.
I was talking to a boy today. We went to pick up some parts for a vehicle, and he was talking about when he got arrested and went to jail, how he got right with the Lord. And I was like, ain't that something that every time we get into a situation in our life, that jail, maybe it may be, you always run to the Lord, you always seek. And another thing that you was talking about was, Lord, I want you to help me here in my life in this area, but I don't want you to touch this. Mm-hmm. I want to keep this for later. I want to hold on to this, but you can have this. And a lot of times we keep, we try to determine on how God should move in our lives, on what he should fix and what he shouldn't. And then a lot of times, even in my case, I want to tell him how to fix it.
Yeah.
I'm like, Lord, here's what's going on with me. Like he don't already know. Here's what's going on with me. Here's what I need you to fix. Here's how I need you to fix it.
Yeah. I put that on this one. It produces a burnout phase. It produces a lot of disappointments and a lot of transactional prayer, like a lot of asking, but you not willing to give. And I was in that category pretty bad just because I wasn't aware of a lot of the things, like I never got taught certain things of this is how this operates. I seen other people do things, and that's kind of how I based my life off of how I watched other people handle situations. And I'd say that is my instinctive place of desperation. It says false desperation wants outcomes with no intimacy. And I can remember being, especially early, young in my life, when I wasn't doing right, when I was out basically discovering the world, because I kind of just went from not being able to do anything to nobody being able to tell me what to do anymore. Mm-hmm. And I found myself in a lot of broken places, bad situations, like things go wrong. I was thinking about how many times I could have died the other day, just in these situations that still I can recall. To like, if one thing went wrong, it could have went really bad really fast, and there's multiple situations in which I found myself doing that. And like I said, that part, it comes without surrender. And I stayed that way for a long time. I didn't understand what surrender looked like. I thought that it was just hitting that bottom and then God's going to hear me there.
Well, I remember when I come to the Lord, being that you said that, I remember when I come to the Lord, and even growing up, I can remember the Lord would work in aspects of my life. Like, for instance, I didn't know how to love. We didn't get love at home. Our mother didn't, we didn't get that good job. Oh, I love you. You've done a great job. I'm going to come to your games and I'm going to support you. We didn't get all that. So to begin with, when I surrendered to God, I had to learn how to do everything. I had to learn how to love. I didn't know how to do it. I had to learn how to be a father. Didn't know how to do it. Didn't have one in my life. So I didn't have an example to go by. So I had to sort of relearn everything that I thought I knew because I didn't know nothing.
Yeah. Starting off with a lot of unlearning before you even begin to learn.
For sure.
Because that was me, is like, especially like early in marriage is a good example, because you're trying to learn how to live with somebody. And I was so set in my ways early, and that we fought a lot, and that it's just that a lot of things that we don't want to change about ourselves, and we do only want to control certain aspects of that. And that's why I chose that first, because I kind of found myself in this phase of desperation before I could understand the next few phases, and the difference in which, some we put ourselves in. It's not always I'm desperate because the world's beating me up. Sometimes we choose situations that we become desperate in, and headspaces that we become desperate in. We're our worst enemies with that. The other one that I was going to say, and this is another primary one, would be reactionary. And this is probably my most guilty one in this phase of my life still. And it's probably the loudest version of desperation, and it's based off of fear. And this desperation seeks escape, not direction, and it seeks temporary relief followed by a deeper pain. And it wrote down, talk about reaction of emotion. You don't care how, you don't care what it costs. And that's kind of the stage of I found myself at the end of the drug use was, and it was still as far as getting the stuff, you know what I mean? I didn't care what it was costing me.
You didn't care about who saw you. At first you was worried about, you didn't want people to know. You didn't want people to catch on. And then at the end you get to where you're so desperate that you would do things now that you normally wouldn't. You would maybe pawn something, or you'd maybe steal something from your significant other, or you would maybe take from your children's savings, or maybe now that you would go and borrow some money or something from somebody else, or pawn something, or you would get to that point where and always, and I know you probably even told yourself this, same thing I did, I would never do that. Oh, I would never go that far. Oh, I would never, do this or do that, or I'll never. They always ended up being, I get to that point that never.
Yeah, I found myself doing lots of things that I'd never imagined that I would do. And so I put on this one, what it produces is rash decisions and compromised values. So it's funny that you said that, because that's exactly what it is. And then on a third kind, I named this one the turning point desperation. And I put it as kind of desperation where you get honesty and accountability. And I put an example sentence as, my way isn't working and I can't keep going on this way. So that's another place that I found myself at. And I wrote down to talk about when Michael and Betsy finally caught us. When I couldn't hide it no more, when it was aired out and it was time for a decision to be made. I wrote down in this how I felt like it was the end, but God made it just the beginning in that moment. My story ain't like everybody. Everybody isn't understanding. they knew that we had done it. We got clean for like a month or so before we ended up going to rehab and everything. But we had gotten to a point of where Betsy was pretty fed up with us, and she wanted to give up. And Michael wouldn't let her because he knew what God had in store, and he kept telling her that, like, this is not the end of that story, and God's not done yet. So, you know, his faithfulness and his desperation of wanting to get us better, it ended up lifting her back up in a situation where she loved us. And, you know, to me, I was expecting to be cast out of the family, to not be led around no more, because I'd gotten their baby on dope. You know, that's how I felt.
Yeah.
That was what my end was going to look like. I was not going to get to be around my kid anymore. So I was going to turn into the very thing that I said my whole life, that since I didn't have a dad, you know, I was in a situation where I thought I was going to put him in the same place that I was when I was little, like he was. But instead, they told me, you know, we're going to get through this and we're going to get you help. And they did everything they could. And he poured into me everything that he could. And he didn't beat me up. And he didn't tear me down for everything. He said, I know you're sick and we're going to get you better and we're going to get you to a place. And that was really the turning point in my life, was that I finally had somebody that said, okay, I'm going to help you get away from this. Because that's where, I know if you're anything like me, in the end, you didn't want to be a part of it no more. You know, I dreaded having to wake up and be dependent on that crap.
Talk to me about this, because you're fortunate that you had somebody like that.
Yeah.
I had the same thing. But talk to me about this, about how it, because usually we're the type of people where everybody's telling us we're worthless. Mm-hmm. You're not going to make it. You're not going to overcome it. You're not going to beat it. So how did it feel to have somebody in your corner that was believing you and thought, you know what, there is value, there is purpose, there is hope?
Yeah. At the time, I probably couldn't comprehend it. Because, like you said,
you probably thought he was looking for something.
I'd never seen that before. In my own head, I create the outcomes of everything, and you know. So when I'm met with something I've never seen before, at the time I couldn't understand the compassion because I'd never been shown it, you know. And that's why, especially his relationship, my father-in-law, is probably a big reason. Like, we talked in Christmas, and family was talking about how proud they are that we're doing this, and Michael got brought up, and they said, how proud would he be that if he was still here to see it? And my mother-in-law said, you know, she said, would he even do it if he was still here, though? And she said that, she brought up something I never heard before. She said that she feels like there's a catapult effect that happens to when we do see the reflections in the people, like yours was Reba that taught you this. Do you think if Reba was still here that you would have catapulted in your faith like you did, or is it the absence of, because I don't have mom to ask my questions to anymore, and Michael to go through for all these questions, now I'm having to start to do the stuff on my own and have my own walk.
Don't be so selfish. We don't see, we never see God's big picture. We don't see the full effect, so we don't understand. We say, oh man, why did he let my mother-in-law pass? Or why did he let your father-in-law pass? Such good people and such, like you said, we don't understand. Would I be where I am now if not for that?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, we don't, for me, I try not to overthink too. I try to think of every best outcome, every worst outcome, what could happen, what couldn't happen, what would be the best, you know, outcome for me, what would not, and all that. So I'm an overthinker too. But a lot of times I just need to sit back and just let God do what he does. I was thinking about that scripture where that man was sick and he was impotent for 38 years. And every year he would go down to the porch and the angel would come and strike the water. And whoever was the first person to get in the water, they'd be healed of whatever problem. And I thought about this man came 38 years in a row, every year. I could imagine him leaving home and going to get healed. I'm going to get healed today. He went the first 5 years. I'm sure he got discouraged. I'm sure he got anguish, despair, all those things probably popped up. But he kept going, he kept the faith, and finally, he got in the water and he got what he needed. So I just think sometimes I don't want to do anyway. Quit overthinking and let God do what he does.
Yeah, and these first three are very easy to get caught in a cycle of those three. But the fourth one is kind of where I'm finding myself at now. Like I'm not in a valley. Any minute I could be, but I'm not on top of a mountain either. But I am in a place of where I can't see God's bigger picture, but I definitely see Him working over here, working over here, working over here. Just through that last episode last week or last 2 weeks ago with Becky and them that we did, just these, I'd get random messages. Hey, this person ran into me in the town and they told me about, one of them had a brother that's on drugs and that they didn't know. And hey, people's messenger, hey, what rehab was that your sister went to? And so it's not necessarily, I'm not really caring about the big picture anymore. It's more the little pictures that they're undeniable, like things connect. This week I was talking with Nate. I just out of the blue sent him a song. And he said, laugh out loud, look what my buddy sent just before you. And it was the same exact song that somebody, so like in those little synchronicities of seeing God, I know that there's a bigger picture happening, but I'm like you, I can't see them until I'm way down the road and I'm looking back after we're done beyond that, And I think that's because of us, the formation of us, like that's when all the works happen. And it takes a lot of time. Like God stranded Noah out until he was ready to take his calling and everything. But this one I call being willingly desperate. And this is the desperation that means I'm not here because I have nowhere else to go, but because I know exactly what life looks like without Christ, and I don't want to go back to that. And I put, for it is choosing depth over comfort, obedience over convenience, pursuit over drifting, not fear or panic, but hunger and love, longing not loss, and faith not exhaustion. And my sentences I put, I want God more than comfort, and I don't want to go back. I put, this desperation produces consistency, discipline, seeking instead of exhaustion, and depth and transformation. It is a chosen desperation that says, I'd rather ache for God than to be numb by a substitute. Tell me about walking, or talk about my walk. So this is where I'm at today. I've realized that doing this podcast, it's important that if I'm going to share God's word, that I myself need to be sharper in it. So my willingness, desperation lately has been me trying to get more involved in the church, to where me going one time a week ain't enough anymore.
Yes.
I'm getting involved in probably joining the church this Sunday, more than likely. And I'm going to my first small group hour, so I'm going to be doing that. We've been attending Wednesday services, and I'm trying to put all my attention on Him. I'm trying to promote this podcast without trying to promote myself.
There you go.
And that's a struggle. Like, I don't think anybody's thinking about it. I was talking to somebody, my boss actually, about it, and he said, who do you think's thinking this? And I said, probably nobody. I said, but here I am in my head, and it's probably Satan, but I struggle with trying to promote a show and to promote Jesus as hard as I am, but that's what He's called me to do, It is on social media. He called me to do it on social media because He showed me the numbers in it. And He showed me that I have videos that are watched in other countries sometimes on TikTok and on Facebook. So there's been no greater time on earth to share God's word than through social media as far as the reach goes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, total
Because
sense.
everybody's on there. But at the same time, in my head, I feel like, am I overdoing it? Are people looking down on me because, he's like this on social media? So I'm trying to make, when you see me in person, line up with that. I'm trying to sharpen. They say iron sharpens iron, and I'm in desperate mode of trying to rub up against other iron right now.
Well, that would be my thing to you is, you got the right idea. You said, I'm going to start investing myself in things. I'm going to join the church. My advice to you would be exactly that. And here's what's so wonderful about that is, when you do that, the things on who's watching this, who's judging this, who's doing that, is it going to get where it needs to go? The Lord's going to worry about all that. It's going to go exactly where it needs to go. We're not going to have to worry about, oh, do I need to share it over here, like it over here, tell this one to do this or do that. Everything will just, it always does. Everything always meshes together. When you work on yourself and get yourself fixed, get yourself right, get yourself connected, get yourself in, and the more you pour yourself into others and into the Lord, man, the more it's going to pour out of you. I mean, it's nasty.
Yeah, and that's the season that I'm finding. Not a lot on earth interests me anymore, and that's crazy. Like, it ain't about material things with me anymore, and I do want to see everybody do good. You know, I'm not that kind that when I'm mad at you, I don't want you to fail no more. Like, it might not be sitting at my table with me anymore, but it's not, I'm not calling you, I'm not wishing bad on you just because, like, for instance, losing friends or anything. I still want you to win in whatever it is, but what's important to me right now is the way and the state in which our world is right now.
Man.
I know it can't be long, and I know it's getting dark, and I know that in that moment, I think that's when we need to start reflecting a lot the most. And that's been my call, was through this, is he knows that I hate talking. So it makes sense that he called me to do this, you know, and that's in the first one I put it where you got the turning point is when the accountability starts to come in. I wrote verses down for it, one that kind of went with each one of them. And on that one I put, for godly grief reduces repentance that leads to salvation without regrets, whereas worldly grief produces death. And that's 2 Corinthians 7:10. And it's just these phases, and we get so caught up in these phases of worry and in control. And I've gotten a little bit too good at turning over the control. And it kind of scares me sometimes. It's almost am I doing my part now instead of here, let me handle all this? You know, am I doing enough now is the questions. And that's a part of the transformation through all this. I've been all over the board, and this ain't over a year. This is probably over the last year. I've probably experienced every one of these things, you know.
And we'll continue to.
Yeah, but that was a word that come up in a couple of the messages of people. They're desperate. And I realized, you know, there's levels of it, and what can we do? What do you think that we can kind of do when we find ourselves in the first two, okay, the reactionary and the false?
Desperate. Man, this is so weird that we speak about this. So, you know, this week that we buried our nephew, 29 years old, and from what we're talking about, and man, this is just how sick people are. There's another boy that we know. First thing he thought of, I'm going to get blitzed out. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to remember it. I don't want to. Which to me, with clarity, is thinking that makes no sense to me. That is, you might as well lay down beside him. That makes no sense. But that is at a place where, and I've been there. I've been at that place where I want, and most of the time what we're doing is we're trying to drown out feelings. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to separate ourselves and escape from what we're feeling, what we're going through. We don't want to think about that. We don't want to remember that. We don't want to deal with that. So we'll just do this. And when I heard that, man, I just thought, that is the craziest thing. But I was right there in them shoes. Yeah. I would have done the same thing.
I would have too.
Man.
During active, for sure, that's the first thing I would have wanted on the left.
Yes, you would have.
That's insane, you know?
I mean, now with clarity it is, but then you would have thought, it wouldn't have crossed your mind. You would have been like, no, I'm going back to the man. I don't want to forget today ever happened. But then what we don't look at is tomorrow, that's still going to be there. And the next day, it's still going to be there. And the next day. But now we had to learn how to deal with that, how to cope with that.
Yeah, and just postpone the other. You know, you still deal, regardless of if you code it now or. I'm still dealing with mom, that still comes out of nowhere.
Still got stuff. You still, and the thing about it is you still add more stuff to that stuff. But now you deal with it a different way than what you would have before. Now you're trying to cope with it. What can we do to overcome this? What can we do to, you know what I mean? Before you would have.
Yeah. Well, and we also start to identify.
Oh yeah.
So when I see me getting in that way, and I'm like, you know what I mean?
Isolating.
I've learned what to do, what to do, and that's normally talk to somebody.
Oh man.
And that's kind of, if y'all are on here and you got people in your family and you know they want help and you know they need help and you just don't know what to do, just have confidence that God will show you, But what we don't want, a big thing, is to be ignored. Like, don't ignore it away and let somebody die just because you was scared to bring it up.
Yes, yes. Don't be afraid to. We don't ask for help. Don't be afraid to extend that helping hand. Don't turn a blind eye. If people are isolating and people are separating themselves or people are acting different than they normally acted, there's usually pretty much a cause. So don't ignore the signs that are in front of you. Just sort of reach out, and I mean, because we're not the type of people we like to ask for help.
No,
we don't. We're crying for help. We are. Our actions and everything that we're doing, we're crying out for help, but we're not asking for help. Yeah. We don't know how to ask.
What would you recommend to people that, like, if somebody's there and they are in that place right now when they're screaming for help but don't ask for it? What do you recommend to start there? And I know it's going to be prayer.
But it's different for everybody. Me, at the point I'm in my life now, would 100% be prayer. I have to get connected with the Lord. But when I was in that state, man, I don't know, because I feel like I've tried everything and I've done everything. I would just try to find someone. And I know it's a rarity to find. I have to find someone I can talk to, somebody I can trust, not to. Yeah. And you know what? And at the end of the day, even if they do spew out whatever you're telling them or the information you're giving, who would care as long as you can get better? You know, at the end of the day, we can't worry about who this person's going to tell, what they're going to say, or at the end of the day, we got to worry about getting better, and just trying to find the help that we need. I mean, especially for somebody that don't know how to ask for help. You're never used to. We're men. We don't know how to communicate our feelings and things. That's just us.
And that's kind of funny because that's exactly what happened when I got caught. I felt like that, and then it turned out to be the direct opposite. It was the turning point of my life to where. So in the turning point for me, it was the opposite of what my head had built up. I thought that was going to be the end. I definitely wasn't expecting compassion. I definitely wasn't expecting a helping hand. I thought that I was going to be turned off on my own and that they were going to make Becca leave me and that I was going to end up being the exact same thing as my dad, as just not present. And had that been the path, I probably would have went way different and probably still wouldn't be here, Yeah. So thank God that he wouldn't allow Michael to give up, and that Michael understood because of his consistency in God that, that we can't give up.
But then how great, though, did it feel, and this is me too, I'm going to express mine, but how great did it feel after everything was out there and in the open and everything wasn't a lie anymore? You could explain things and tell things that, where people were finally starting to put together and saying, oh, okay, yeah, I remember that. And then you didn't have to, you finally could tell the truth about things. Mm-hmm. You finally had that. It almost felt like that weight was gone. Mm-hmm. Of course, you're fixing to take on a new chapter in your life and getting clean and doing the right things and all that. But I could just remember the weight that it felt like it took off of me, that finally I can be honest now.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's a strange feeling, because for so long, who was there to check my lies, first off? And some lies, I don't know if you're anything like me, but I lied so much that some of them I believed.
Man, I'm telling you.
And so that's another thing I had to unlearn. I had to learn that it wasn't healthy, and I had to unlearn that behavior and program in a new healthy behavior. And you know, that took people guiding me, and that's a big part of this thing, that when we are desperate, we tend to isolate, but that's when we need the community the most, you know, is we can't just run away, you know, because like you said, when you run off, if you run off on me, I know it's for a reason, you know, and it might not be the reason that I think in my head, but I feel like sometimes it's a sign, you know, like we think we're slick.
Yeah.
But realistically, the people that are in your life and the ones that love you, they're going to notice a difference, you know. And I'm thankful, like you said, the weight come off and the not having to keep up anymore. And it even led to me admitting the stuff I'd never admitted to before, you know, openly. And then therefore, I guess letting it all out, allowing healing to come in and take place on a lot of it. It opened doors for me. Like each step in my formation, from where I was to the climb and where I'm at right now, you know, he's opened a door every step of the way, and I'm finally starting to understand that it's when he thinks I can, or I ain't gonna say things, when he knows I can handle it, you know, when it's time to handle it. Because for me, I told somebody, I said, you know, I wish that God would bless me enough financially to where when people are in trouble that I could go and you know, but I had to learn that maybe I'm not responsible, and that maybe that ain't even the plan altogether, but maybe I'm not ready for that stage of my life yet, because it would in turn bring me down and wreck me.
Well, then again, though, that is us playing God.
Yeah.
We're like, you know what? I know what He wants me to do. I know what He wants me to. He wants me to do this and do that. And at the end of the day, we don't know nothing. We don't know what He wants. We don't know what He needs from it. We don't know nothing. And I'll tell myself that all the time. There'll be times I preach and messages, and I'm like, at the end of the day, I look foolish because I don't know nothing. I don't know the plan. I don't know the purpose. I don't know what He has for me. I don't know none of that. At the end of the day, I just look like I'm just learning everything because I don't know what He wants for me. And a lot of times when I try to put my hand in there and direct the way I want it to go, I make a mess of things. So and for me, if you ever notice me withdrawing, or if you're messaging me or you're calling me and I'm not answering, or I'm isolating myself, for sure reach out. I mean, because 100% there'll be something going on.
Yeah.
Whether I want to talk about it or not, that's when people are in desperate mode. That's when people quit reaching out, and people quit. And what's so crazy about it is we know each other and know our friends and know people so well that we know when something's going on, and we're not the type that want to butt in and say, hey, I know something's going on. You need to talk about it. A lot of times we sit back and we want them to open up and say. But yeah, for sure, if you ever notice me not returning your texts, not returning your calls, for sure reach out.
Yeah. He'll definitely expose that. I myself going through some of those things with people and struggling with things with people, and I'm an isolator myself, and I don't even know where to go with this really, but through my walk, he's for every person that I feel like has to go, or the season's done, or you know that God removes, or just the things that God removes, He's introducing and replacing with new things and new people, and it's just this podcast alone, it's plugged me into this world so heavy that now I'm starting a social network with all these things and work with these people, and it's changing the way my heart works, and just each step of the walk. And like when we went to meet my dad, and I didn't know what that was going to look like. It was scary, you know, but we went through and we pushed through, and I come away from, and I would say that a big part of that spot in me has been healed, because I finally can comprehend and understand a bit, and really don't have to worry no more about it, you know, because in this walk and in the formation that I'm trying to do with myself when I'm stripping, and I'm more worried about producing fruit than worried about what the world's thinking, what the world's doing, you know. And my big part of me, my heart's switching, because I'm turning into somebody that used to not like people, but now it kills me when I see people hurting, and you know, and there's so many people hurting, and it's how there's not enough hours in the days for me singularly to do that. So I just pray, and I'm getting better about trusting whatever that path looks like, and just when I see it's my turn to go, step up.
Yeah, that's good. I like what you said about, and this is what where we all have to get to. You said, my heart, because when he controls your heart, he controls your mind, he controls your mouth, he controls your thoughts, he controls everything else that comes out with that. And at the end of the day, that when he has your heart, then everything else. And you have to, man, I'm telling you, and when you turn yourself over and give yourself, and it's still difficult. We still have problems. We still have things that come up. We still lose people. We still hurt. We still struggle. All these things still come up. But man, we have somebody now that is batting for us, somebody that is the adversary, somebody that's on the right hand, somebody that is helping us through all the problems, all the situations, everything we go through. And when you lean more on him, you tend to lean less on yourself and on what you think you need, and lean more on what he knows we need.
Yeah. A huge part of my walk has been learning how to strip me out of the equation.
Yeah.
And I think that's the diving board stage that we talked about, is when you finally hit the water and you got to swim, and the show's important to me. It's a lot of people like it, a lot of people message saying, hey, this one helped. I really like what you said here. And I just want to make sure that it's always real, and it's always from the heart, and it's what we're going through in the moment. And, and when we hurt, y'all hurt, and when y'all hurt, we hurt. And I'm by no means a podcaster. It's what my pastor's telling everybody now that he's introducing me to everybody in the church. This is my podcaster. And that's not, but he called me to do this, and I know I'm terrible at it. I know that I still get nervous every time I talk, and I lose my train of thoughts a lot, and it sure would be a lot better if I could just write it down, but that ain't what he wants out of me. And I understand that, like being sick last week and me missing that, it was kind of like I missed church, like this helps me to talk. Just to get it from here to out of there, and not have to carry about it, And I couldn't have done this, like you said, without the being able to stop lying, and because we'd have been figured out by now, And I'm just grateful that he's pushing me to places to where, for one, I'm getting less scared to answer the call because I've seen enough of the other sides. And I'm like you, I'm starting to go too far. I don't want to go back to all that again,
Well, I think a lot of this, as far as the show, for me, the parts that I take out of it and what I see is people want to see real, and they want to see people. You're not used to, and it's crazy, but we're not used to bearing our souls. Men ain't used to speaking their faults and their troubles and their hurts and their desires and all these things. And I believe on here, people like to see and hear people's stories and say, you know what? There is somebody out there going through what I'm going through. There is somebody that, and it may make them want to talk about their story. They may want to get on or come on or tell, hey, their situation and what they're going through. And I mean, it can help people. And that's what's so crazy is we don't know how to connect with people, and the Lord knows. Yeah. That's why when you put the Lord in it first, the Lord's going to send it out to where it needs to go, and the people's going to receive it that needs to receive it. And that's just how, at the end of the day, that's just how it works.
And that's what I'm trusting in. It's so hard to promote something without promoting yourself. And the message that he told me to promote is that, yeah, we're going through situations. Yeah, there's hard times. Yeah, there's drugs. This ain't just a drug show, you know what I mean? It's all the same exact things. But what I'm learning is there's a book, and that problem's in that book that I'm having here today, and that book's 2,000 years old, so that tells me I'm not the first one, I'm not going to be the last one, but until we hear it, you know what I mean? And the big thing about this show is a lot of people is like, I had no idea, or I didn't know. I hear that more than anything. I didn't know that was a thing, so that's me, is he told me to get on here and just to broadcast that, and hopefully it goes where it goes. And like I said, the day I fake it's the day that I'll come on here and admit it and say, look, I've not been honest and I can't do this no more. But I do know that it's got to go on regardless,
What's so crazy though, you said the book, what is so wild is we have the answers to the test in the book and we don't even use it. A lot of times we don't apply it until after all of our stuff has ran out, after we've tried to make it succeed. We tried to pour all into it. We tried to do this. We tried to do that. And then at the end of the day, and a lot of times you'll hear people say, oh man, I'm sick. I'm going to go to the doctor. And there's nothing wrong with doctors. I'm going to this. And at the end of the day, last thing you go to is prayer. Lord, move for me. Lord, heal me. Instead of us going to prayer first, we got the book. We got the answers to the test. We just don't always use it.
Right. And a lot of us, it's just ignorance isn't going to get our way out of a certain place, you know? Ignorance can't get you into heaven, and we can't blame our misunderstandings or, you know, a lot of people's struggles with the church is because they were a kid in church and they had bad memories or they just had bad examples. And in my relationship with Jesus, I've learned that, you know, of course the church is broken. Of course we're all hypocrites. Every one of us is in there looking for the same thing. We're all wanting answers. And we're all looking how to deal. And we got to get past all that. That's the fleshly stuff that we got to get through that. And we got to understand, you know, like, is church about the building? No, it's not. But what it is that it's your connection with the people. You become who you hang yourself around. And that's why I love the church that I found, is because they explain it, it's a big church with a small church feeling. And that's really how I have to explain it too, is because they're involved. I see their ministries, they're doing stuff. You know, they're not just, hey, tithes, give me your money, let's get out of here. You know, I believe in what they're doing there. And so I believe in the people there. And therefore, I'm trying to surround myself with that, because the more that I'm there, the less that I'm over here still struggling with the cussing. And, you know, it's crazy. When I walk into a church building, there ain't no cuss words even starts to think to come out of my mouth. So I'm drowning myself in it right now, and I hope that it stays that way. I hope the hunger don't leave, and I hope this thing carries on. And if it's with the same 4 people watching, then it's with the same 4 people watching. You know, it's not about numbers. Even though it is about getting a message out, it's not about any analytics. It's not about a self-promotion of me or him or Michael. We're nothing special. But the moral of the story is everything that I found here, there's only one way, and that's through him. Man. And without that, we're just spinning our wheels.
100%.
I agree.
I totally agree. I 100%. And I think that's a good thing to put. I love what you said about in church, them thoughts don't come to your mind. That's what you need more of. You need more of church. You need more people, good people in your life. And be careful. There's people out there that are in the church that ain't of the church. So, I mean, there's going to be some bad fruit in the basket. So, I mean, just be prepared for that. But my thing would be pour yourself in everything, if they got outreaches, if they've got classes, pour yourself in. And the more, and you know how it is, the more that you take in, the more you absorb, the more that'll come out, the more that and man, once you get to a place in your heart, or get to a place in your life where you finally let the Lord lead instead of us leading, then everything else just always seems to land in place. Yeah. It's how it does in my life for sure.
And it's not, like I said, not the way we imagined, not the way we drew it
And it's
up.
not perfect either.
No, but it's still the way, you know, and it's even starting to change how I give. When somebody's coming to me with something, I'm changing the way that, like, oh, this guy did so-and-so to me. Well, I would do blah, 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 you know what I mean? Like,
give them the input.
I'm starting to give less emotion, you know.
Well, maybe you should,
And what's funny is, like, when we go through things, when I learn things and then the next person steps up, hey, like one, for instance, is humans have a big misconception of when we do turn it over to God that everything's just going to be great all the time. And it's not. It's kind of the opposite. It's a constant freak out of, hey, this is happening, and then somebody on the other end that's been in it in a minute just kind of giggling at you. Because we lose the comforts. But, you know, the thing about it is if you can just keep coming in, keep seeing it through, and, you know, just keep starting over if you got to. Keep starting over. The important thing is that you get there in the big end. And I heard... on the way here, I heard a quote, and it said that God will never rush what he intends to last, and that it makes a lot of sense, you know. A lot of my blessings today, if I'd been handed them 20 years ago, I'd have pawned them, like you said.
Well, that's
So,
why the Bible says the race is not to the swift nor to the strong, to him that endures, to him that stays connected, to him that holds on, to him that puts his hand to the plow, him that don't look back, him that don't complain, him that don't fuss, him that don't buy into that gossip or buy into that. Just like you said, hey, guess what? Back in the day, you would have been like, yeah, that sucker, if I was you, I'd flatten his tires, da da da. But see, you don't understand now the seed that you would sow. When somebody comes up to you and hits you with that, you hit them back with that love. Yeah, you know what? I'd pray for them. Mm-hmm. They might be going through something and you don't know. They could be struggling. Them people's hurting. Maybe you talk to them. Don't talk about them.
Amen.
Try that.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, but I felt at a place of, I pretty much said all I needed to say. I'm happy with it. Michael, just watching it. We look forward to having you back, brother, getting you healthy. You got anything else you'd like to add?
Bring him back so we can get that. It's probably going to sound crazy when I say it, we can get that threesome. But yeah, we're praying for you, brother. We hope all's well. And yeah, we're praying for you.
All right. Well, if all things go well, we'll see you back here next week. Appreciate y'all being part of it.